The Closing Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close, starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick and Alix Steel are here to help take you through the closing bell. It's a global simulcast starting now. Scarlet Fu joining us in the TV studio. Massar and Tim Stenovec in the radio booth as we bring together our audiences across all of our platforms, including our partnership with YouTube. Massar, another phenomenal day if you're a small or mid-cap stock, particularly relative to what's happening with the larger cap brethren.
Yeah, the outperformance, right, that we're finally seeing in small caps. We've been talking about them, I feel like, forever, guys. We're seeing investors move into it. Once again, though, I'm going to highlight also the financial sector, because you're looking at the KBW Bank Index up almost 5% in the last 2 days alone, and that compares with about not even quite a 1% gain in the S&P 500.
Yeah, the Russell up 3.4% right now, up about 11.5% so far this year, which is underperforming the major indices. Well, underperforming the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. I got to tell you, I feel bad for anyone who has to do decliners today because the rally is so broad-based.
Meaning you?
Meaning me. Yeah.
No, whatever.
No,
you got Schwab. You're fine.
I got Schwab. What else do I have?
You've got lots of talking points tied to Schwab. It's so interesting you point out the gain in the Russell 2000 for this year, because much of that has come in the past couple of days. Since Thursday, the June CPI report came out, the Russell 2000 has gained 10%, and Mag 7 have fallen almost 4%.
Yep, Russell 2000 beating the NASDAQ 100 by almost 11 percentage points just in the last 4 sessions, not counting today. Haven't seen that since 2011.
The cross-asset moves with yield slightly lower here. Bitcoin higher on the day. The VIX a slight tick higher as well. Nevertheless, you are looking at record highs, at least for 2 of the major indices here on this Tuesday afternoon. The Dow Jones Industrial Average looking to finish out the day up by more than 700 points, or about 1.8%. A run closer back to that 41,000 level, 40,958 and change as we wait for the numbers to settle. That is a record high. 566.7 on the S&P 500, up 36 points from where it was yesterday. Also a record high. The NASDAQ Composite up about 36 points, or 0.2% here on the day. And the Russell 2000, which is still about 200 points away from claiming its record high, getting ever so closer to that 5 straight days of gains, including a 3.5% gain here on today.
All right, for all you technicians out there, maybe no surprise, though, to see that if you look at the RSI on the Russell 2000, you are seeing it overbought at this time, so piercing above that level. Back to the big caps, though. Scarlett, you're going to get into the major industry groups on the S&P, but most names, in the S&P actually gaining ground today.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see the weak links of the S&P 500 in the IMAP here. They are the 2 biggest sectors within the index. You have tech and communication services, each down by at least 0.4%. But your broad advancers are industrials, materials, and consumer discretionary, all gaining at least 1.5%. And it's worth noting, too, that for the Russell 2000, all 11 industry groups are higher by at least 1.5%.
All right, guys, let's get to some of the individual gainers. Match Group, certainly among the top gainers in the S&P 500 today, finishing the day with about a gain of about 7.5%. This is after Starboard Value built a stake in the company, becoming the 3rd activist investor to do so, to take a stake in the group, in the company specifically. Starboard has about a 6.6% position in Match, and the investor plans to push for a sale of the company. So tracking
which Match Group app do you use the most, Carol?
Depends on the day. You know, it depends kind of in my mood. There's just so many. Moving right along. Bank of America up 5.3% in today's session, rallying, moving to the highest in more than 2 years. We heard from Brian Moynihan sitting down with David Weston, talking about the consumer, talking about the lending environment. Company did report trade and investment banking results that topped analyst estimates, did give a forecast for NII, net interest income, its biggest source of revenue, that also exceeded expectations. Another banking name, State Street, up about 7.3%, finishing at its highs of the session, up after beating revenue and net interest income expectations as well for the second quarter, even amid some high expectations. So that's an outperformer. And just one more earnings name I want to throw in there. United Health up about 6.5%. This is after the company reported second quarter adjusted profits that topped estimates, even as the firm saw medical costs that were higher than Wall Street expected. Can I say I like Tinder? No, I don't like Tinder. Okay, moving right on.
You don't like Tinder? No, Carol, you can't say that.
I don't say that.
You like the veggie one. There's like veggie friends or something.
That's the name.
Not veggie. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, moving right along. I think,
Swipe right for
Scarlett,
broccoli,
I think you were the one who
left for
called
cauliflower.
that I do have Schwab today, finishing the day down 10%. Shares suffering their biggest intraday drop going all the way back to last year's regional bank crisis. That was back in mid-March. This after Schwab warned that it will have to shrink itself in order to protect profits. So going forward, Schwab is planning to rely more on off-balance sheet arrangements to house customers' deposit. This is according to Walt Bettinger, the company's CEO. By relying on partners like Toronto Dominion Bank, deals would allow Schwab to more efficiently use capital, he said. Investors not cheering the results after that earnings call this morning. Shares down more than 10%. Also, shares of DJT rallied yesterday, but they fell today. Fell 9%. This after the owner of Truth Social registered 38 million shares that could be sold as part of a pact with Yorkville Advisors. The registration relates to a pact unveiled on July 3rd that would potentially dilute existing investors to sell $2.5 billion in common stock. As I mentioned, shares rallying double digits yesterday. And ticker PGR, Progressive, also in the red today. Shares fell after reaching the highest intraday level on record. Shares down more than 3% today. This after the insurance company reported second quarter net premiums earned that came in ahead of estimates. So good earnings, but shares fell after reaching the highest intraday record level on record, Alix.
See, you got it. You did stuff. There were definitely some
Slim
decliners,
pickings.
thanks to Charles Schwab. All right, going to the bond market here. You saw buying across the curve, so that steepener trade taking a bit of a break today. 2-year yields down by about 3 basis points. 10-year yield down by about 6 basis points. So we'll see. We'll see what happens tomorrow after we've seen that steepener over the last 4 days. Taking a break today, TBD.
All right, guys, you know how we got the retail sales number coming in stronger than expected. Having said that, we talked with our Chris Condon of the Bloomberg economic team and basically said, you know, all right, it's one data point, but what we are seeing is a lot more metrics that are showing some consumer weakness. And there's a great story on the Bloomberg about car repossessions that they're up 23% in the first half of 2024 compared with last year. And you're seeing signs of increased stress when it comes to consumers and higher interest rates certainly playing into this, Tim.
Okay, so let's talk numbers here and let's talk rates. The average interest rate for a new car is currently 7.3%. For a used car, it's 11.5%. That's according to data from Edmunds. So, Romaine, that means that bills are up to $739 for a new car and $549 for a used car on average.
And we should point out, we spent a lot of last year talking about that increase in those payments. And, of course, now we're starting to see the data of how it comes back to bite some folks. We are getting some earnings crossing the wire. This on the trucking company, J.B. Hunt, a big miss on the bottom line. Second quarter earnings per share coming in at $1.32. The street was looking for $1.48. On revenue side, also a miss, $2.93 billion in sales. The street was looking for roughly $3.3 billion in sales. You can see the shares, guys, down about 3% in after-hours trading.
Yeah, we knew that the rates were going to be a problem, right? But it was sort of when that trough comes and when they sort of work its way out and how the recovery winds up looking like. It does not look like that recovery coming right now. Those shares down now 4.5%.
And by the way, this is now the 7th straight quarter that EPS has fallen. So it's been a pretty steady decline here. And the big question is, at what point have we reached the bottom? According to Lee Klaskow, spot rates may have rebounded off the bottom, but the supply really needs to tighten for the rates for truckloads to really move higher in a sustainable way.
Yeah, so stock here down almost 3% in the aftermarket. Keep in mind, it's down about 12% here in 2024. So again, some concerns here. Again, second quarter EPS miss, and you look at revenue also coming in light here, Romaine.
I do want to go back to the consumer here. There were some headlines just a while ago on Five Below, the discount retailer, basically saying that its CEO, who's been there for quite some time, since at least 2015, has decided to step aside. Joel Anderson to pursue other things. The interim CEO put in place Kenneth Bull, suggesting that this, of course, was not a planned transition. Those shares down, but they also pointed out in releasing earnings here that they're seeing significant weakness as well, which could be interesting, too, against the backdrop of what you guys were just talking about with the car repossession story.
Yeah, shares down 5% as we speak. They fell as much as 5.6% post-market as the CEO stepped down. Tom Velios, the co-founder and chairman, appointed interim executive. Five Below names Kenneth Bull as interim CEO.
You know, we talk about the repossessions of cars and how you miss 3 months of car payments, your car gets seized. It's a bit of a contrast to 2009, where people were talking about how cars are the last thing that people are willing to miss payments on because that is what they need for their livelihood, right? In order to get your job, you need to hold on to your car. Your house, not as much.
Does anyone remember that video that went viral where it was like a car dealership and they were going around asking people what their payments were? And
they were all like over $1,000.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like $1,000 a month for whatever souped up Dodge Charger they had. And I don't know, maybe that was a harbinger that maybe
But they were like proud of it.
Yes, I know exactly. So it's just kind of a different mindset. And again, at some point, I guess that comes back to bite you if you can't get out from under it.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. But I think it was interesting what you said, Scarlett, about kind of it's the last thing you're going to let go, right? Because it probably gets you to work and takes care of everything else. So it's a big deal. All right, guys.
You can't rely on the subway?
Not every city has a subway.
Exactly.
We in Seattle last week, we were able to take the light rail, the monorail, and the bus.
That was cool. Your video was really cool on that, actually.
It was fun.
Does that thing go anywhere? I went on it once, and I was just like...
The monorail, it goes between two spots, and it's from the early 1960s.
All right.
When they built
I'm sorry, I've got to get back
cool.
to the dating apps. Some of us have some things to do.
All
right, guys.
You swipe right on Bloomberg.
I thought he was going to take the monorail to Shelbyville.
All right, that is our cross-platform radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals, folks. Beyond the Bell, closing bell.
Does Mr. Massar know about this?
Shh. Okay. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow.